The story Muskwa Walks is told through the eyes of an elder named Muskwa, which means bear in the Cree language. Much of my teachings at the time came from the Cree and Ojibway elders, and my stories honor their teachings. Muskwa Pit.
Yeah.
The spirit of Muskwa. The chapter actually came to me at a time, I want to say when I was 19, I started to write my first book. Okay. The problem with that, it was a journal, and I didn't have enough self-esteem, and a lot of things have happened to me from that time until now. So the chapter is actually just a taste test. You know, it's like going and sampling and going to a buffet. You get little pieces of that. My bigger book is going to come out in February, March. Prior to my mom passing away in January, which came under construction, and I still managed to finish it and my book, because thinking about all the grandmothers that helped me bear in our Aboriginal culture is all about the herd.
Oh yeah, no, I'm half Cree.
Okay, but I also taught it in college.
Sit down for a meeting.
And whenever I went to talk about my experience, and I would say, then I say, you know, I gave up a daughter when I was 16, 17 years old. What? And then they would say, well, that's how sad for you. But I said, do you know what my elders said about that? And they would go, and they would say, listen. And then I would say, you know, I've had teachings from my grandmother about abandonment, about how to protect myself when it comes to grounding, all these other stuff. Is there choices? Then I realized that I had somehow, after my mom passed away, turned into a grandmother myself. But I'm not. My kids don't have any kids. But I became this older version of this character who turned into Muskwa. Because when I was writing this chapter, I get memories start flowing, things falling off the table, and then I know I'm on the right path. And I'm going, that's because I'm writing through the eyes of this young elder. So I'm going to pick a spot in the book. And so the last reading I did somewhat when we first got here was a dream about a brick house and a big huge bear. And that's been my life. That's why Muskwa. This huge bear came to me, and when I opened the door, blue light, scared, really just scared. And I turned into a mini bear, and I went after it. And so that's been me. Whenever something has occurred in my life, it's been huge, and I've been mini bear, and I've gone in there and I've corrected it. So we're now at giving the interpretation of the dream. In the dream, the brick house, and it was a brick house that represented colonialism and marginalization of my roots, native roots, right? Because when I went into this brick building, they coerced me into, you know, like I think it was more a song and dance, have the drink and the wine, and, you know, I felt like I was being pressured, so I drank the wine. It reminds me of marginalization, you know. And then I thought about how we can talk about colonialism in a way that people can digest, right? Because it's not one of those fluffy, soft things that you just naturally bring up. And so the rest of the paragraph goes, the bear she had become would represent the walk she would make through her life. Her thoughts returned to the schoolyard bullying she had endured while she was growing up. How her peers had yelled insults such as half-breed, squaw, or Indian giver at her. Muskwa hadn't been raised on the reserve. Her parents had owned a house in town and had sent both their children to a public school. She had never understood the name call, never did. Several times she had tried to ask her mother, who had always responded abruptly with the phrase, never mind them. Now she sat in her chair, thumbing through this red binder full of letters. All the letters were in page protector sleeves to prevent damage. She could already see the fading of the ink, creases in the paper from handling, and old postage marks on envelopes thinning from the many years of being shuffled from one place to another. As she turned each page, she randomly pulled out letters to read. Some letters held warmth and others brought sorrow. Amidst letters were pencil sketches her late brother had created many years ago. A sketch of Abraham Lincoln made her smile. Her brother's name signed at the bottom right captured her attention. How tragic his life had turned out. He had been a gifted artist, a talented man, yet his ghosts had overtaken him in alcohol. The memories of loss stung Muskwa's eyes, but no tears followed. Still, she wondered, what drove him to drink? Many years had passed without contact, until one day she had received an email in 2009 that said, "Come home, your brother has passed away." She looked at an old assignment from the days he spent in treatment, penned 2 words in his handwriting, liver disease. And the next page was a student report card from her schooling in the Kamloops, BC unwed mother's home for young women. Her marks reflected C+ to B's in all her subjects. Muskwa remembered boarding that bus that fateful day when she had first arrived at the home. She had been solemn, and there were no words of comfort from anyone. Only words from a social worker who told her that it would be best for her to stay at this unwed mother's house until her baby was born. It was in the fall of 1978. Her belly was already showing through her sweater. Feeling conscientious, she recalled how she constantly pulled at it in an effort to hide the bulge from gaping eyes. People were repeatedly glancing in her direction. In her mind, they were all staring at her. She recollected standing by herself, watching the leaves fall from the trees. The ground had been littered with multicolored shapes that had reminded her of an old patchwork quilt. The breeze was cold. In her memory, she saw herself shudder as it wafted across her face. She watched other passengers as they all waited for the bus, and they seemed very happy. Muskwa had always had a presence in those days. Sometimes the thought of that presence alone had given her skin goosebumps at night. She had read stories about guardian angels and decided maybe it was one of the bear spirits she dreamed about, and that they were there to protect her too. And I'll leave it at that because it goes on more.